Hello, and welcome to Alive or Just Blethering, a podcast where two 30-somethings discuss the music we found and loved growing up. My name is Keith McLeod, and with me is my fellow host, Chris Lavender. Today in Alive or Just Blethering, I'll be talking about Kezia by Protest the Hero.
Had a good day to you, Keith. How are you?
Kezia! Just because you wouldn't let me do it in the intro.
That was so high-pitched that the voice analyzer thing on Discord cut you off.
I think when I was younger, I used to be able to do it higher. Kezia! I don't know.
Oh, good.
Everyone just switched off. Everyone's just like, oh, fuck this. We're not doing this. These guys can go fuck themselves. I'm not listening to this guy belt out Kezia for the rest of the thing. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Alive or Just Blethering. Thank you for joining us. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. We're going to get balls deep in Kezia later. Phrasing. If you're a returning listener...
Keep it up.
If you're a returning listener, thank you very much for coming back. If you want to get involved in the conversation, give us a shout at AOGB Podcast, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. That's it for now. Send us an email, aogbpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to get deep into that conversation. Deep. Like we're about to get, again, phrasing. So...
Okay, Keith. You made this point really clear last week that you really like this album. Before we even started listening, you were like, this is a special one.
Yes.
So, with that in mind, I'm assuming that you've not let your nostalgia cloud your judgment this week at all.
No.
I'll take your word for it. I'll take your word for it. Because I got some heavy nostalgia listening to this. This was a really... The description I could just think of this week is like listening to this album again was like putting on a really comfy jumper that you've had in your wardrobe for many years. You've had it since you were 18 years old, and you've just never thrown it away because it didn't have any holes in it and it was nothing wrong with it. It's just lived in your... You've put it on. It's like it was never off.
Oh, okay. No, don't get me wrong here. Was I drenched in nostalgia listening to this album? Yes. I thought your question was, has my nostalgia sort of blinded me to this album? And the answer to that, if it was indeed your question, is no. Mate, this album came out in June 2006. In the US, it's not clear when it came out in the UK. 30th of August 2005 for Canada, June 2006 for the US. 2006, this guy was in college, and listening to this album took me right back there. Like, just burning down the Edinburgh City bypass in my wee Saxo, just absolutely binning it to get to college on time, usually late, because that's, I was a badass, that's how I rolled. And yeah, just loving life, listening to all the sweet picks and just unnecessary bass tapping and ridiculous kick rhythms and just all the falsetto. Everything about this album was just... amazing, and it took me right back there. But
Good.
By no means am I blinded by nostalgia in this album. This thing's a classic.
It is a brilliant piece of music to listen to from start to finish. There isn't a skippable moment within the whole album. I just want it as soon as it starts. I want to hear it to the end. It's 40 odd minutes. I forget the length of it. It just takes you all the way there. It's so well paced. It's really well balanced. I think the album's really uplifting. Would that be a phrase you could share? I find it really, really positive and uplifting. Even just whether it is the sweet pickings or the keys that they're using, but it just brightens my day.
Yeah, no, I think I do get what you mean. Like, this, listening to this album does make me happy. Like, in all honesty, even take it back to when we talked about Bullet for My Valentine, and I could hear some, like, recognizable riffs and some moments. I'm just like, oh yeah, no, when you get back into the album, and if you've not heard it for a while, it sort of brings you up. obviously we talked about Bullet. There was some other things about that album that have not aged as well. But yeah, getting into Kezia, it's just, you're right, start to finish. There's maybe a couple of moments that drag. I'm not going to say this is a 11 out of 10 album. Like, there are moments I personally find in songs sort of around the middle bit. Maybe Bury the Hatchet, Nautical. Some of those songs are a bit bleh for me. That's only to say, if everything else is a 10, they're 9s.
I get
like,
you.
You know, as is our sort of method for describing songs we don't like as much. You know, if everything's a 10, this is a 9. And yeah, but from start to finish, from No Stars Over Bethlehem, like, you know, just that ding, like if it's a bell or whatever it is, and it just, or that chime, and it just sort of fades in, and it just kicks off all the way to the end of a plateful of Our Dead. There's just some incredible moments on this album that 2006 Keith had never heard before, and I think that's why it still sticks to me today. Mm-hmm. Like I said before, I love Protest the Hero. I still listen to Protest the Hero. I've gone through all of their albums with them, with the exception of one, and we'll talk about that. But I've gone through all of their albums. Palimpsest, released in 2020, their latest release, was one of the best albums. It was my best album of the year. I still think it's a complete masterpiece, much like this. Like, I still really love this band. They've had their troubles, they've had their ups and downs. I suppose I did step away from them for a while. Mm-hmm. Around about 2016. We'll talk about that. But yeah, for me, this just epitomized. That's not a word. This sort of epitomized another time of my life. 2006 was moving into another band. I think, as I've already said, I was in my power metal band by this point, and
this fit out. This would have fit like a total beautiful jigsaw piece. Like,
the technical playing is the thematics of the album, the stories that's getting told, are the story that is being told within the album, the technical playing, even the guys themselves. I mean, I think we're the same age as Protest the Hero, so to see them just like banging out these tunes in this album and the videos that went along with it, I fanboyed over these guys hard. Like, I soaked up every like sort of MySpace image or whatever you could find. I've talked for too long. Say something else.
How did you discover Protest the Hero? Because I know what my story was. It was Scuzz. It was the video for Blindfolds Aside. Whenever that came out, and I instantly heard it and knew I'm into this. I was into, listening to my Triviums, probably bought it for my Valentine's, all the albums we've very recently discussed. Yeah, that was my sort of my mindset at the time. At the end of 2004, I got my metal guitar and I wanted to learn how to do all that sweeping and I really enjoyed like that lead guitar sort of sound. So I wanted to try stuff like that. And when I heard Protest the Hero, I was like, this is incredible. This is beautiful, beautiful music that I can absolutely latch onto. And Blindfolds Aside, it's got this epic tone to it, and the video tells the story, which is a little bit about the stories within Kezia. And I totally was like, yeah, I'm in there. Get the album,
swimwear,
get it on. But how did you discover them?
I don't know. Anticlimax, I know, but I can't quite remember. I want to say, you said Blindfolds Aside. I think it might have been the video for Heretics and Killers. Very memorable video. It's sort of a spoof on Wizard of Oz, Dorothy, The Witch is Dead. The band sort of play these out of work munchkins. Munchkins? No, not munchkins. Monkeys. The purple. They're in full like purple monkey makeup, and they're trying to find jobs and stuff like that. I want to say it was that. I do remember quite clearly like burning the CD. Acquiring it through fully legitimate means.
Obviously. Probably
Kazaa at this point. And maybe Kazaa? Who knows? And burning the CD, listening to it in my car. And I don't know where it was. I was with friends from my power metal band. And I was like, guys, have you heard this? Have you heard this shit? And I played Kezia. And like, they were all just like, yeah, man, that's PTH. That's Protest the Hero. Like, where have you been? How do you not know this band already? And I was just like, what? Like, goddamn!
I hate it when that happens. I hate it when
No,
you're the
I
last
know.
person to know about the best band ever.
Yeah,
It happens.
absolutely.
There's too many times I can put my finger on occasions when it's just like, this band has existed usually for about 4 or 5 albums. And it's like, this is your new favorite band, and you should have known about this 6 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And then I just remember like shoving Kezia down absolutely everyone's throat. Like if you got in my car circa 2006, you listened to Kezia. Like I remember a friend of mine who like was very much into hip hop at the time. Like he was a rapper, was a rapper, and I was like, dude, you've got to listen to this bit. And it was like the gang chant and Turn Soonest to the Sea. Is it Turn Soonest to the Sea? Yeah.
So, yeah. Sounds familiar.
Maybe someday. Yeah, I think. Yeah. I was like, you got to hear this, man. You got to hear this, and like just that sort of breakdown and how that progressed. And he was like, yeah, man, that was cool. Yeah, that was cool. And I'm like, but did you get it? Did you get it? And like that's part of the album, man. Like I'm saying, thematically, it just got me so much. Like by this point, I'd probably heard Mastodon. Maybe not. I don't know. Had I heard Leviathan? I was definitely getting into Dream Theater. Again, they've came up multiple times, but if you listen to Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory, incredible concept for an album. One I probably still fully don't understand, but this is just a place I was in where I was getting into this stuff where music was more than just like a, no offense Linkin Park, but like a dun 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 I'm about to break. Like, do you know what I mean? Like okay. I was really starting to find like the depth of where, starting to discover new depths of music.
Mm-hmm. I love a concept album. I'm terrible. Yeah. I'll admit I'm absolutely shocking at working out stories from lyrics. I don't listen to lyrics. I listen to sounds. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
So it's just how I don't know how my brain's wired, but it means that I have to read the lyrics, and I have to go on the internet to read the lyrics. I can't do that while I'm listening to it on my iPod or on Spotify. Well, Spotify these days has lyrics, which has kind of helped a lot in that quest to get better at it. But the idea of a concept album really didn't click for me until a few years later when I started listening to a band called Defeater.
Mm-hmm.
One we will very likely talk about in the not so distant future, but they have every album of theirs are all linked with the same thematic storyline. So right. when I was told by Robbie about Kezia having these 3 stories within it, it made me realize that I was like, oh, of course it does. Like it all made sense. Like once someone like points out something obvious to you and you go, oh, of course it does, and it totally gave it a new sense of meaning to me. And that was when. So Kezia is not an album that I listened to a lot when it first came out, when I first in 2006, when they came out with the next album, Fortress. I absolutely ate that for breakfast, and then I dropped off. I think my music tastes moved on by the time the next few albums started to drop. After 2010, my music tastes definitely took a deep left turn into heavy. So I walked away from these beautiful flowing guitar solos and uplifting music, and I took a turn into something much heavier. And it wasn't until we were supposed to see them in, was it 2019? We all had tickets to go and see. It might be in 2018 even.
It might have been 20. It might have been the summer of 2018.
We all had tickets to go and see them, but I think Roddy blow his voice out again? There was an incident which prevented them from coming over, and they were supported. They were going to be supported by Norma Jean, or Norma Jean was supporting them, or vice versa. I don't know. And
yeah, it was on June 6th, 2018. The band announced they were forced to cancel their upcoming summer tour in Europe and Japan and postpone the recording of their next studio album due to Roddy Walker developing vocal issues that might develop into irreparable damage if not taken care of. So, yeah, I'd have said it was 2018 that we should have seen them in Glasgow.
So then I think I discovered that Kezia had a remaster.
Yep.
So I gave it a fresh listen, and a new listen back in 2018, and I enjoyed it. I didn't, I really enjoyed listening to the album as much as I have done this last week, just listening to it in 2022, giving it that fresh sort of a critique. Would that be fair to say? To realize that this is a really great album and something I find kind of timeless now. As I feel like I can listen to that at any stage of my life, whether I'm a 36-year-old dad or a 20-year-old student living in squalor, spin kicking my guitars around, and I'm going to have a good time. And it was really, really, it was really refreshing to listen to it, but at the same time, it was really comforting to listen to it at the same time as well. So yeah, good album.
Yeah, I mean, let's not say Kezia is not without its flaws. The original version.
Okay, yeah. I'll listen to both, by the way. I will, just for our listeners at home or in your car or whatever, I gave both the original and the remaster a listen.
So I didn't. I just listened to the original because that's where it started for me. I didn't go back to the remaster.
And I think that was the correct decision. I wish I don't like the remaster. There, I've said it. There we go.
Oh, controversial.
I've said the controversial. I don't like the remaster. The drums are overdone. The clipping on. I listened on 3 different pairs of fucking headphones, thinking it was like, is it me? Is it my computer? Is it my headphones? And every time there's a problem. So stick to the original if you haven't already, and enjoy it for what it is, because that kick drum sounds like shite, but at least it's not distorted.
Enjoy it for what it is, but what it is a bit of a hot mess. Like, I do not mean to be disrespectful to the band or the producer.
It's 2000 was it recorded in 2005 and released in 2006.
The producer is Julius Butty. We've mentioned Julius before when we covered... We've done Alexis on Fire, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
Yeah. Julius is a Canadian producer well known for his work with Alexis on Fire and City in the Colour. All good Canadian stuff. So yeah, I don't mean to shit on that in any way. I think it's quite clear. I fucking love this album. But its guitar tones are quite rough. And,
rough's a good word for it. Rough's a good word for it.
We don't need to identify the individual flaws. It is, even by other releases around the time 2006, it's rough. Yeah. And that's fine, and because that's what it is, and that's part of its charm. I think for Kezia, it's part of its charm. These guys were, I don't even know how old Protest the Hero are. Like I say, I think they're the same age as us. So it comes back to what we were saying about other bands that came out young. These guys, it's their first release. Let's keep in mind, this is their debut release. They had an EP before this, but this is their debut release. Released on Underground Operations in Canada and Vagrant in the USA. This is their first release, and it's Canadian progressive metal. Like, I know other bands were doing this at the time, but these were the guys that I heard this sort of prog metal, this incredibly technical playing from such young musicians as well. Like, I absolutely forgive all its flaws because it's just content-wise so good.
I'm absolutely stunned that Vagrant Records are such a how do I put it, broad label. Like, they've got everything from like the 1975 and Bombay Bicycle Club and Black Rebel Motorcycle Club. Like, I wouldn't.
Bit more of an indie label, aren't they?
And then they have the more indie emo bands like Dashboard Confessional, Get Up Kids, Census Fail. They were on Vagrant as well. So they're just such a broad label, and I feel that Protest the Hero would have. I wasn't in front. I don't know what the deal was that was put in front of them, but I always would have kind of envisaged them on a heavier a heavier label given the type of music they were playing. You know, they were playing music in the style of Between the Bird and Me, and they're on a label, and they're sharing a label with Dashboard Confessional.
Well, they are in the US, of course. Underground Operations in Canada have, who do they have?
Avril Lavigne was the that's the first. I've just clicked on Underground Operations Wikipedia page just to see what name stands out, and that name is in blue.
Yeah, I'll admit there's not a lot of names I'm recognizing here. They also released Fortress. They released the live album Gallop Meets the Earth and the third album Skrullos. Nailed it.
I will say that. So as well respected as Kezia is, I do think Fortress is the better album, only insofar that it is just much more well presented, better recording, better production. I think it's got a better pacing. Like you were saying, there's a couple of moments in Kezia where Bury the Hatchet and Nautical wanes a little bit. I think Fortress does not. It's a close call, a really close call, but for the two of them, I would say is almost a draw. But Fortress just pips it over the line because of its just better sound, and all the flaws that I think we're identifying with Kezia are virtually non-existent in Fortress.
I will respectfully disagree.
Okay.
I don't think any album is particularly better or worse. Okay. Both have their absolute bangers, both have their sort of waning points for me. Both are concept pieces, you know, with very in-depth stories. So even the band say that Fortress is a natural progression from Kezia, but it is based on Kezia, and they take it forward. They get more technical. They said they wanted to sort of move away from the sort of popular elements of Kezia and get more technical, more into the metal, more into in the music with Fortress. And I think they did that. There's some absolutely belting moments in there. The whole Fortress thing is a bit weird because there's lines like Irish Steel, and it's to do with Genghis Khan and stuff like that. Maybe we should get into the actual theories of, or the stories of, both albums for the listeners or for whoever isn't aware of it. Let's talk about Kezia first. So you said there's different parts of Kezia and stuff like that. So the theme itself is, and I'll just take this straight from the Wikipedia page, there are two ways to explain the concept behind Kezia: the literal meaning of it and the deeper meaning behind it. The simple explanation is that you have three characters on the album who all describe a certain situation from their viewpoint, which is the execution of a woman. We choose a priest, a prison guard, who's also the executioner, and the woman in question, Kezia. They all have 3 songs to tell their story. In the first song, they paint a general picture, and the second, blah, 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 blah. Right, okay. Mm-hmm. The deeper meaning of the concept is the gradual downfall of our society. Oh, just a gradual downfall of our society. We tried to make the lyrics timeless so that the story could be situated in any time period. There's also the political and social critical messages in it. Not that we bluntly say that we hate Tony Blair, George Bush, blah, 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 but in more general comments on the fact that religion and power are getting more entwined every day. Mm-hmm. Right, that's just Kezia, right?
Yeah.
Fucking hell. Fortress. So
that's more of a theme, isn't it? It's more thematic than conceptual. Yeah. There's a theme of goddess and worship and.
No, you're getting confused. So Fortress it has to do with goddess worship. Because we spoke about this before we started recording, that's where you're getting confused. Fortress is to do with goddess worship. And how there has been this degendering of the Lord and Saviour. I don't know that I agree with degendering. Maybe I don't know what degendering means, but for me, like, the Lord and Saviour, i.e. religion, God, blah, blah, has always been of the male gender.
Well, he's called the Son of God, so...
Yeah, so I don't know how that's degendering, but maybe I just don't understand what that word means. Anyway, and the suppressed feminine. A lot of it is based in Genghis Khan and old Irish mythology. I'd be interested to know if those two ever met. I doubt it. About the rise and fall of the goddess of the forest, the theme can be more appreciated by more people. If I had to reduce it to its simplest form, the concept is about the reimagining of goddess worship and the erosion of faith in scientific process. The erosion of faith in scientific. Yeah, so they want to like undo the concept of religion through science. But at the same time, we can worship goddesses as much as we can gods. The male, the male and the female. So
it's funny. There's a lot of fiction that I think we read that talks about sort of religion and faith getting intertwined with power. So we could talk about Kezia and Fortress both by, you could go through something like Game of Thrones or his Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman, which is pretty on the nose. It's young adult fiction, so it doesn't hide anything. But one thing I've been recently watching, actually, the tangent here, but if you've watched Arcane, it's an anime
on Netflix.
Yeah, on Netflix. Yep. It's a League of Legends sort of spin-off, and it very much talks about science and magic being one and the same. So yeah, I can totally get where in someone our age in 2006 was where their head was at, if that's what they were sort of reading and looking into.
So absolutely, like, I was totally eating this shit up. Like, if I mentioned it at the start of the episode, how I made my friend listen to the gang chant of Turn Soonest to the Sea. So the lyrics in Turn Soonest to the Sea. Maybe someday when this bloody skull has dried, I'll know our city is in ruins, when the greatest source of pride is a monument of dicks and ribs and gender crowns we wore, where underneath a plaque will read, no woman is a whore. Like, I don't know, maybe I just sound like an absolutely raging feminist at this point, but like, I was fucking loving that stuff. Do you want to know why? Because no one else was saying it in 2006. Credit where credit is due to Protest the Hero. No one else was, I wasn't hearing or being shown music at this time that was like, yeah, like, this shit's crazy. Like, the patriarchy and stuff.
Well, you compare that, just, compare those lyrics to Bullet for My Valentine. Sorry to drop it back in there. Where he's...
Sorry, Bullet, and anyone from the Bullet Reddit that's still pissed at us for that.
Doubt you're listening, but if you are...
Oh, sorry, we're not sorry.
Ultimately, there's the crux, is we've got people of similar ages, and one band is writing really thoughtful, in-depth critiques of provocative critiques of modern societies,
like questioning, like putting in some hard questions,
and then the other side of it's just singing about being dumped and blaming, and it's not his fault, it's her fault.
Yeah, exactly. Like, sorry, Bullet, you basic. It's probably a basic meme to say, but like, yeah, and Protest the Hero have maintained that level of depth and intelligence in their music for me since 2006.
So you said already that Palimpsest you would rate as like a really, really... It was your best album of 2020.
I'm even conflicted with Palimpsest because it's Roddy Walker's... FYI, great name. Yeah, I'm conflicted with Palimpsest because Roddy Walker's explanation of Palimpsest is, it was written during the Trump administration. Obviously, 2018, he had to take some time off, although it delayed the recording of the album. So it was written very much during the Trump administration. And Palimpsest, first of all, the word Palimpsest is like an oldie time when like paper wasn't as readily available, and if you were to like sort of, I don't know if you wash it or whatever, but if you reuse parchment, if you reuse paper back in the day, and you could still see the words underneath, like, apparently there's a word for that, Palimpsest, right?
Okay.
And the meaning of the album was to focus on America and how great it was and how literally great it could be again. Not the Trump concept of make America great again. It was, look at everything you've achieved, look at the hardships you've been through, your country was about people coming from all over the world, falling off of boats and trying to make a living for themselves. And I'm like, oh God, here's a Canadian band writing an album about how great America was, so like be that great again. And I'm like, fuck America, it's a bin fire, just let it rot. That's my personal opinion. Apologies to any American
a third of our audience are from America, so
apologies to any American, but surely a lot of people from the rest of the world don't like your country. So Lav's just died inside.
You just make some questionable decisions, and you know what? You're free to manifest your own destiny. Just don't be upset when the rest of the world looks at you a bit questionably.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, the UK invades countries with you, so like,
we are also we are living in the same bin as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly. You're totally right. Sorry, the UK is a bin fire as well. So we're all fucked together. But where was I? Yeah, so that's Palimpsest, and that was the depth and meaning behind Palimpsest. But that's the point I'm trying to get to. The lyrics have, I'm talking about how they've just maintained that depth and that intelligence. Like, Roddy Walker must be a fucking genius as far as I'm concerned, because the guy can put into lyrics stuff I don't even understand. So I'm quite happy to continue to listen to their music.
So the band went through a phase of... So Palimpsest was...
Palimpsest, I think.
It's got an ST at the end, sorry.
Thank you, Palimpsest.
Was released on Spine Farm Records. Now, I was on the understanding that Protest Hero went through like a crowdfunding phase in the mid 2000s, early 2010s.
Yeah.
But at this point, I was in another place, so I wasn't really listening. I didn't listen to this band at all. So, you were telling me earlier that this is something you were involved in. Was there Indiegogo, GoFundMe campaigns?
Certainly. So, yeah, as I sort of mentioned earlier, I'm butchering all these pronunciations. I'm so sorry, Protest. Skrullos was their last release on Underground Operations. Volition, they decided to crowdfund, like you said, on Indiegogo. They wanted 125,000 Canadian dollars.
The maple dollar. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And they released it themselves. I want to say there was some issues at that time, because they paid for it themselves, but then people were like pissed they went through a distribution label. So they've funded it and recorded the album themselves, but there is a label says on Instagram, fuck off Keith, on Wikipedia, Razor and Tie. This is an American entertainment company that consists of record label and music publishing company. So maybe I'm just wrong, but I seem to remember there being a bit of an argument at the time of, hey, you guys have paid for this yourselves, why do you need a record label to release it? But I think it was just a misunderstanding there, and it was actually the distribution company. They just needed 125,000 Canadian dollars wasn't going to get it out there to the world. That was just to record it themselves.
Yeah. That's it. So you don't need to wait, which is probably where Razor and Tie maybe come in that, much like most indie labels, they're not going to front you the money. They're not going to sign you into a deal, say, here's $1 million, go and make me 5 albums. Instead, they'll be like, oh, you've got the album, great. We'll do this, we'll sell it to people for free, and you'll get 10% of every sale. But we're investing the money into the postage, the packaging, the putting it in boxes, making the vinyls, making it look good, promoting it, advertising it. There's so much. I know that the music is really what's important, and the musicians should be paid correctly for their input. But advertising isn't free. Marketing isn't free. Putting it in a CD jewel case, pressing it into vinyl, posting it to fans, putting it in record shops isn't free. And that's where record labels, for better or worse, step in and do the hard work. we attest to this as a podcast with content creators, and we have to tell people about it, and it's something that, God, if we had the money to pay someone to do it, I fucking would.
Oh yeah, big time. It's a pain in the ass. So that's the whole point. That's the whole point that these companies exist, because they build the network and they have the tools and the facilities and the skill sets to do this. Anyway, let's not get into that conversation. So Volition was done by Indiegogo. The artwork was done by Dan Mumford, Dan Mumford, he did Homesick by A Day to Remember. He's definitely done some Haste Today stuff. He's done a ton of album covers. In fact, I've got some of his artwork in my house. So that was the Indiegogo campaign, right? This is where I then fell off Protest the Hero, because to further experiment with like sort of online content and distribution and to try and contain or maintain control themselves, their next release wasn't a set album. It wasn't a fixed thing to release. It was Pacific Myth, and what they chose to do was distribute through an online music subscription service, Bandcamp. What they chose to do was distribute through the online music service, Bandcamp. So what you did was you signed up to their subscription service via Bandcamp, and they released a song a month.
Okay.
Was it a song a month? Yeah, they'd give you a song every month. Now it's only six songs. It's almost like an EP. So what, you were going to pay monthly to wait 6 months to get 6 tracks? Like, with all due respect to Protest the Hero, I just wanted an album. Like, that wasn't where I was. So I haven't even really listened to Pacific Myth. I'm sure it's amazing, just like all their other stuff, but that put me off them for a while.
I have to commend them. I'm not going to say that it worked. Obviously, if it's turned off who was effectively in this current circle of me and you, their biggest fan, it's
Hooah!
Clearly not going to appease everybody. But I have to commend a band for thinking a little bit outside of the box.
No, and, fair play.
You know, here we are in 2020, 2022. There's been more and more news about how Spotify, yes, it means anyone, anywhere can access your music. It's an infinite jukebox of music, and
Pacific
more and
Myth
more
is
is getting
now
added
on
to it.
Spotify.
What's that? Sorry,
Pacific Myth is now on Spotify.
It is on Spotify, but it's this, you know, the bottle is more important than the wine when it comes to Spotify, and the contents of Spotify that you don't really care about because they don't pay their artists enough for all the revenue that they're generating with their subscriptions. It annoys me that, you know, as one of their premium tier subscribers, that most of my money is going to artists that I never really listen to. You know, I would love the fact that as my money goes to the songs and albums and bands that I listen to, but instead it just goes into a pot and then Spotify divvy it up.
Yeah.
In that way, and it annoys me, but you know what? Convenience costs.
You're kind of reminding me, I don't think I actually ever bought Palimpsest. I don't think I ever bought a physical copy. I may need to rectify that. But anyway, back to Kezia. So we sort of mentioned the theme. It's a story of the execution of a woman told by 3 perspectives. Do you know the order of the characters in the track listing?
I do not, no.
Right, so this is interesting because I initially thought they were mixed. I thought it was like track 1 is Kezia, track 2 is the priest, track 3 is the prison guard, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back into it, that's not the case. Part 1 is the prison priest, so all the first 3 songs, No Stars Over Bethlehem, Heretics and Killers, Divinity Within, is the priest. The next 3, from Bury the Hatchet to Blindfold Aside, prison guard, kind of obvious with that one.
Blindfold Aside is the one that sort of
a sin I didn't care for, but
draws
it
all
that
together.
my debts, that burned my eyes in cigarettes. Yeah, like again, just fucking great lyrics, Roddy. Great lyrics. I probably got it wrong. And then part 3, the track 7 to 9 is Kezia. Kezia! I also love the Divine Suicide of K. I think I tried to make that a username at one point, but it was too long or something. You know, the Divine Suicide of Keith. But, fuck, I was such an edgelord. And then part 5, track 10, the finale, is A Plateful of Our Dead, and that brings in the perspective of the band. So, again, just further cementing why I was loving this band, because there was just so much detail in this stuff that I was eating for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and still do.
Fair enough. That's all good. No, it's a really good album. It holds up really well, and you know, my favourite songs, the ones that stood out for me, they still stand out for me. She Who Mars the Skin of Gods. Oh, chef's kiss. It is just the...
I know, but can we talk about that name for a second?
What?
She Who Mars the Skin of Gods. Like, it's... I think, within context, it's very fitting, but it's also a bit of a mouthful and a bit weird. She Who Mars the Skin of Gods. It's,
well, to mar something is to mark it, isn't it? Is to inflict damage.
Is that what Google just told you?
Well, no, that's what Mars is. The problem is that Mars has two meanings. Is that, you know, to mar is to damage something, but Mars is a planet. So it's, I think there's like a double meaning in that, because you've also got a whole suite of planets which talks about that, and the Greeks would call the gods, name the planets after the gods, or the Romans. The Greeks did it first, but then the Romans came along and changed it, just because. And it's sort of that. I think that's how it's got like a sort of double meaning to it. So it's like there's Mars and gods in that title, but it's she who, to me, I read it as she who damages the skin of a god. You know, and a god is meant to be invincible. It's meant to be untouchable. Yet this woman was able to do that. It's like she was strong. She's got the ability to hurt someone in the right way.
Bloody on you, Kezia. Yeah, no, I just find the title funny. To not go too much into the definition of it. So yeah, what else stands out for you? I think blindfolds aside, She Who Mars the Skin of Gods. Anything else?
I think Divinity Within was always a banger.
Yeah,
just that the sweeping guitar solos always drag me in, and there's that left pan, right pan, left right ding da 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 da.
Yeah,
always used to catch me out. Makes me stop anything, you know, would stop me walking in my tracks usually when I was walking to work with it. So it was always a good one. How about you?
Yeah, can I say all of it?
You can say all of it if that's.
No, I sort of said Divinity, sort of Bury the Hatchet Knock will sort of drag a little bit for me. Do I also maybe say Divinity Within is a little for me? No Stars Over Bethlehem kicks off as a winner. Heretics and Killers is amazing. All of part 3, all of Kezia's songs, She Who Mars the Skin of Gods, Turns Sinners to the Sea, and the Divine Suicide of K are freaking perfection. Obviously, Blindfolds aside as well. Plateful of Our Dead, I could take or leave. It seems to... I don't know whether it's just the shift in focus that it's bringing the band's context into the story or whatever. I don't know. There is something about A Plateful of Our Dead that doesn't quite grab me as well. Fair enough. Maybe I'm kind of like half and half, 75% of the album. But again, if it's not a 10, it's a 9. So, okay. but those are the songs that sort of stand out for me. Is Heretics and Killers, Blindfolds aside, 7, 8, and 9. Just I actually once, and I suppose I've not really spoken about this yet, but I've talked about the technicality of the album and how, you know, it's prog metal and these guys were so young and they're putting out this sort of stuff and stuff like that. Arif, the bass player, was a massive influence on me. I'm sure you can tell because I can play just like him. is the joke, because I tried to learn Turn Soonest to the Sea and fucking gave up. Like, I am nowhere near the capability of. I am. Oh God.
It's just another name you're going to butcher, isn't it?
I'm not even going to insult the man by trying to pronounce his name, which is probably an insult.
Does it make you feel better that the person that replaced him has a much easier to pronounce name?
No, because that just standardizes my ignorance.
Mirab Dolbaghi.
Arif Mirab Dolbaghi.
Thank you. I just wasn't hearing bass players do that either. Like, just everything about this album I had never heard before. You know, the guy's just like popping in taps like it's absolutely nothing. He's even just putting in a couple of pops and slaps, you know, just why not? And just blew my mind as a bass player to just sort of hear this guy shredding as much as the guitarists were. Like, just actually having fun with it and just going round and just doing whatever he was clearly more than capable of doing. So
I've already mentioned earlier how they remind me of Between the Bird and Me in their
sure
sonic sound. Obviously, Roddy's vocals don't hit the same sort of level as Tommy Rogers, but I think they're certainly, when you look at like comparing Arif to Dan Briggs, I think is a fair comparison, because I think the pair of them both bring bass up a level. You know, when I played in hardcore bands, punk bands, the bassist is just playing along with the band effectively. But in Arif's case and Dan's case for Between the Bird and Me, they really are driving the music in many times, and it's the guitarists that are keeping up with them in some places.
I think Protest the Hero helped me find Between the Buried and Me. Like you're saying, but they are very similar. I would say Between the Buried and Me are more on the edge of progressive. I think even Protest the Hero will say it in the sense that Between the Buried and Me just had longer songs. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, Between the Bird and Me would release a 50-minute album which is like 8 songs.
Yeah, exactly. That's sort of what I'm referring to. So, Protest the Hero absolutely helped me find Between the Buried and Me, and we've talked about this before. I struggled with colours. I can listen to and love colours, but it took me a while to sort of really listen to that. There's such a harshness for me to colours that is difficult to listen to it from start to finish. But The Great Misdirect, holy crap, I loved The Great Misdirect. So I was very much listening to Protest the Hero and Between the Buried and Me at the same time, and still can't play anywhere near these guys. Could never even attempt to learn these songs, or it would take me so long I would just give up, as I literally did with PTH.
We will one day talk about Between the Bird and Me in much more depth, because that time will come.
But yeah, like, even so, there you go. How did this band affect me? It totally got me into that sort of prog metal, not prog metal. It got me into that, progressive metal. Got me into that technical playing. There's another band I might speak about, The Human Abstract, that I was probably listening to around about this time.
Good show.
There was, and then it would later impact me in bands like The Contortionist. I love The Contortionist, and I don't know if I would be in a place. Did I see Protest the Hero and The Contortionist? I think did Protest the Hero tour the studios with Contortionist?
They may have, but I wouldn't have gone to see it back then, because that would have been a time when I wasn't into it. I saw Protest the Hero once, and we've talked about this, supporting Bullet for My Valentine at...
I mean, I missed that show.
So that was at
the
Corn
I missed
Exchange.
that performance, yeah.
So I got to talk to Roddy, and he was just a really nice guy. I don't know whether he was being sarcastic or if he was just being generally funny, but he just didn't understand the attraction of Matt Tuck. Like, he's like, all these girls are talking about Matt Tuck. I don't know who the guy is.
Well, yeah, and like, it's funny. We should. I can't. It would be unfair of me to call out Matt Heafy and his streaming, and not call out Roddy Walker and his streaming. So I follow Roddy on the socials as well, and Roddy also streams I assume he twitches. I'm not entirely sure. He is clearly not as prolific as Matt Heafy, but that's where it doesn't bother me, because the guy's just doing his own things. He's doing sort of vocal covers and stuff like that. He's just doing the odd video here and there. He may be more prolific, like I said on the Trivium episode. I'm not a streamer, but Roddy streams as well. Clearly, these guys are having more and more income revenue streams than just, you know, tours and selling records and stuff like that. But it's funny that, like, it annoyed me when Heafy did it, didn't annoy me when Roddy did it. So game on. Interesting.
Well, I've not got much else to say, but, you know, Kezia, a really welcome album to listen to. Not really given it a full listen for a long time. It was really nice to go back to. One that I will certainly consider listening to again and again from time to time. How about you?
Yeah, I'm not done. Jadea Kelly, Jadea Kelly, the female vocalist on the album, I think just deserves a shout out. I think a bold swing from the band on their debut album to include a guest vocalist as much as they include Jadea. Again, apologies if I'm butchering your name. So I just credit where credit is due.
Yeah, it's a nice touch. Nice bit.
Yeah, totally.
It adds her voice is absolutely beautiful, and it goes really well as a nice sort of segue within the album to change the tempo of things. And knowing the album's story, to have a female voice is actually really important. So yeah, good on you. She also came back on Volition as well. So they I think they like to. I would, if you're a Protest Hero fan, if you're a Kezia fan, obviously you've probably heard, maybe like yourself, Lav, you didn't stay with them after Fortress. Scurrilous is good, if maybe just a little bleak. You can maybe tell the band are a little bit fed up with the record industry at this point. There's a bit of a lineup change. Arif and Mo Carlson, the original drummer, leave. Mo leaves just before the recording of Volition. So definitely check out Volition. I can't say anything to Pacific Myth because I've not heard it, but Volition's absolutely great. And then, of course, couldn't recommend Palimpsest enough. So I fucking love Protest the Hero. I love it so much. It shows.
But yeah, no, and I'm glad that like we both listened to the band at the same time.
We did. It's one of the few bands I think that we can really talk about that we definitely had the moment. They made an impact for at least a good 3 years with me, between Kezia and Fortress at least. I didn't stick with them. You did. So it's really good to hear that you stayed involved, and I will maybe give Volition a listen this week because I'm interested. I'm interested now. They've whet my appetite.
Palimpsest from Google: a manuscript or piece of writing material on which later writing has been superimposed on affected earlier writing. So I think that's what I said.
Yeah, effectively, yeah.
Great. There you go. Super. Great.
Super. So, anything else on Kezia?
Yeah, great question. I could probably go on. I won't. Album's an absolute belter. PTH for life. Fight me.
Good to know. Outside of Protest the Hero, what are you listening to?
What are you listening to?
What are you listening to?
Not a lot, actually.
No podcasts, no TV shows, nothing.
I could bring up some podcasts. Because I did go really back into Protest the Hero. I went through Fortress a few times, and I listened to Volition again. Didn't listen to Scrollius. So yeah, I did spend a lot of this week listening to PTH, but I suppose I spent a bit more time listening on to. Have I recommended Confessions of the Idiots?
Not heard it before. What's it about?
Confessions of the... Again, because I'm such a loser, another Melbourne-based podcast. I just listened to the same group of comedians in Melbourne. I'm probably getting to some stalkerish levels here. But Confessions of the Idiots, the guy basically goes on Reddit and reads confessions, but has comedians. So, like, you know, it has guests. His guests are comedians, and bounces off of these comedians and bounces off of these guests as to, like, you know, what do you think the confession is going to be? What do you think they could do about this confession that they've put on the internet and stuff like that? It goes through like 3 or 4 an episode. It's usually pretty funny. I've not listened to a lot of that podcast. I've mostly gone through the guests that I know, because there's a few I don't really know. Mm-hmm. But I think he followed me on Insta as well, which is cool, because I followed him.
Very nice. Very nice.
Sammy P. So that's kind of what I've been listening to. A butt ton of Protest the Hero and Confessions of the Idiots podcast.
Very good. Very good.
That about yourself?
Well, after speaking about Parkway Drive, I briefly mentioned Bleed From Within, and just so happens they have released a new EP just this week. So yeah, I would. It's is it called Shrine? I think it's called Shrine. Give it a listen, see what you think. It's completely serviceable, well recorded. That's all I'm going to say. The other thing I was listening to, there's a new Alexis on Fire track, which I keep finding myself going back to.
I want to say you mentioned this last week.
Did I mention this last week as well? I keep going back to it, and it's really good. I really quite like it. It's I'm trying to find the name of it because it's not showing on my thing. But yeah,
Sweet Dreams and Otherness?
No, the other one.
Reverse the Curse.
Reverse the Curse, that's it. Yeah, so that one, that's got me interested in that. I listened to the new Architect song that appeared on my release radar this week. Mm-hmm. And that's all I'm going to say about that. There is a new Lorna Shore song, actually, I will recommend to anyone who likes deathcore to give it a listen at full volume and sacrifice your ears, because it will tear your face off.
Nice.
It's melting, face meltingly good. And Moontooth, another band I've been sort of following. I enjoyed their last album they released. They released an album, in 2016 they released an album called, I'm going to absolutely, Chroma Paragon, which is amazing album. But they've released they've got a new album out called Phototroph that I need to listen to, but I listened to one song from that, and I think it was called, nope, I didn't write down what it was called, sorry. Oh, yeah, and there's a new My Chemical Romance song.
Is there?
Yes, there is.
I've not heard. I've got another song that we've been listening to, but I've not heard there's an MCR song.
It's guff. It's guff. It's absolutely pants. Nope. Sorry, guys. It's very disappointing.
Oh,
especially after Jared Wig, he did a guest appearance quite recently and did some growls on a song.
Yeah, on whatever Heafy's new project is.
Ishikara something.
And he's the good part of that song. Gerard Way is the good part of that song, I must say.
Okay.
Well, I was just reminded there as well, actually, that you recommended Illenium and Spirit Box.
Yeah.
Shivering. What do you make of that? Because I know Illenium, not particularly well, but sort of I've listened to a little bit of stuff like that, and it's came up in some radios and stuff. So, like, it's... what do you think?
It was interesting. It's got some vibes. To me, reminds me of a time around the late 2008, 2009, when bands just had to have a drum and bass breakdown in their songs, and Illenium seemed to just run with that. And now it feels like there's been a Spirit Box song that's been Eleniumed. Yeah, it's got Courtney's voice on it. It's not particularly Spirit Boxy, but it's got some parts that I can be like, I can see where it's coming in. And you know what? Spirit Box are now probably one of the biggest metal bands, like rising metal bands at the moment. They could easily do a small tour of the UK or Europe and sell out.
They're doing some extra UK dates because they're coming to Download, and I fucking wish they were doing more than London. But I think they're doing 2. Originally it was 1, but there was such demand they're doing an extra 2 dates in London, round about Download. But they're not doing any more than that, and I'm kind of gutted. I think they're touring with someone. They are the support for someone. I want to say I hate the headliner, so I'm not going anywhere near it. But I am dying to see Spirit Box.
It'll be interesting when it happens. It'll be interesting when they finally do like a proper full tour.
The Elenium song, there's nothing particularly Spirit Box about it, to be fair. Alright, Courtney has a scream in it later on, but there's not. I didn't feel. I was like, this just sounds like Elenium featuring Courtney LaPlante. It doesn't feel like a song that's been written between both artists. So I was a little bit disappointed when I heard it, to be fair. I think you were trying to say it's a light Spirit Box song, and I think I heavily denied that. But I suppose when you actually go back to Eternal Blue and you hear like We Live in a Strange World and stuff like that, like,
that's the song I was trying to.
They absolutely do have those lighter moments, and I'm not against that at all. But I suppose I do like the Elenium song, but I like it because it's an Elenium song. I don't like it because it's a Spirit Box song. You know, I don't think it's very. Like I said, I don't see where the Spirit Box part is in it.
Fair enough.
Apart from the screams, so
nothing that sounds anything like Protest the Hero is what else has been listened to. Is the bottom line of that, really?
Absolutely. I'm not gonna lie. In preparation for perhaps our 50th episode, I did start listening to some of that.
I should maybe get started on that too,
because that's gonna be a biggie. It's gonna be a biggie.
It's very likely. Very, very likely. Can I wait?
Reet, what you gonna bring to us next week, mate?
Well, I mentioned this band earlier. We were meant to see them in support of Protest the Hero in 2018. I'd like to talk about Norma Jean.
All right, Wrongdoers.
No, not 2013's Wrongdoers. I'd like to go back to 2005. We're in that.
Damn.
We're in that zone. 2005's Oh God, the Aftermath, the first album with Corey on vocals after Josh had left from the album prior. It was either that or do the Chariot. So I'll go with Norma Jean, and we can then just mince the Chariot in there quite comfortably.
Sounds good, man. Cool. I'm doing with that. I've got it's sort of similar to maybe Parkway Drive. Really, my relationship with Norma Jean is sort of similar to what my relationship with Parkway Drive was. I sort of dipped in and then dipped out again pretty quickly.
I've got a couple like that. I think they're a band I could probably talk a lot about because they've got a lot of great albums, and there's albums that just pass me by, whether for one reason or another. But I'd love to talk about them because I think they've had a bit of a hot streak since 2013's Wrongdoers, and Oh God, the Aftermath, personally for me, was where I first heard them. So I'd love to talk about it.
Nice. Can you tell I've watched a lot of Brooklyn Nine-Nine recently? Nine-Nine! Nice.
Good for you.
Nice.
Good for you.
Thanks very much.
But is it me?
Say the damn words.
Would you be so kindest, O dearest Keithest, to take us home?
Keithest, who mars the skin of lav. Thank you very much. Don't mind if I do. Thank you everyone for listening. We have been Alive or Just Blethering. Please, if you would like to get in touch or offer your opinion on Kezia, please do at AOGB Podcast. Instagram is probably where you're likely to find us. Twitter also. Facebook, send an email, aogdpodcast@gmail.com, if you've got any more thoughts on this record. Personally, I'm still a little bit moist from listening to it, and I'm probably going to go listen to Palimpsest now to send me off to sleep. So, next week on A Live or Just Blethering, Lav will be taking us through Wrongdoers.
Waiting for that.
Lav will be taking us through, what are they called? What's it called?
Oh God, the Aftermath.
Lav will be taking us through Oh God, the Aftermath by Norma Jean.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Good night.